Recording is now in progress.
Absolutely. All right. I would like to just welcome everybody to Literacy in the Discipline 612 webinar for April. Because it is National Poetry Month, we have focused on poetry. And the person that we have here today is the illustrious Anna Howard. So I will allow her to introduce herself, but welcome very much to our webinar. Anna, take it away.
Thank you so much. All right, let me get this slideshow on the road here. Oop. What's that? I gotta move a thing. Darn you, internet. There it goes. Perfection. Progress, not perfection. Now we can do it. Ah, here it goes, hopefully. Ah, yes. So I titled this talk Speak Poet, because that's something that my students got very used to yelling at each other during slams, during workshops, sometimes while snapping very aggressively. And it's something that poets, both in the adult and the youth communities, use to encourage each other to speak their truth, to be their most individualized selves. And that's the name of the workshop that we run every month. It's called Speak Your Truth. And it's a space for our students to collaborate, to come together, to share what we call half-baked poems, to work on their performance. And so I want to tell you a little bit about our organization and who I am as a person and a poet. And I particularly want to tell you about who the young people who have come through our doors are as people and as poets, because they're the reason that I do this. And they're the thing that kind of motivates me in life. So I'm a 15-year member of Poetry Slam International. I'm a two-time semifinalist at Southern Fried. I've performed on national stage. I've taught middle and high school for 14 years. I'm the artistic director of Soda City Youth Slam, though I am in the process of stepping down and training my replacement for health reasons. I'm a doctoral student in language and literacy. I have a young daughter, and somehow I am still doing all of this. I haven't broken down just yet. So if you're not familiar with spoken word and the culture of spoken word, here's just a quick fact sheet, y'all. So it was founded on the oral traditions of a lot of cultures. It has a big focus on the beat poetry movements of the 50s and the Black arts movements of the 60s and 70s. It also is really entrenched in hip hop communities and hip hop pedagogies. Mark Smith is credited with starting the Poetry Slam in 1984, though he is a problematic figure in slam and is actually his name is no longer used in the opening monologue for official slams. The governing body is called Poetry Slam International. SC is part of what's called the Southeastern Regional Conference. Our region is called the Southern Fried. It's a lot of fun. And Youth Speaks, which is kind of the youth arm of the PSI, was founded in 1996. And the first Brave New Voices Festival, which is the International Youth Slam, was held in San Francisco in 1998. So it's not a long tradition, but it's one that has really become entrenched and that really has existed for students in one form or another for quite a while now. So here's the development of my organization. In 2016, we started with what was called the Chaos Collective. And the Chaos Collective began when one of my students who had been in my speech class and done a spoken word poetry project with me came up and said, "Miss Howard, we need to do this all the time." And I said, "No, I'm already too busy." And she kept bothering me for several months until we finally put in the paperwork and made it an official club at the school. So through the club, we sponsored artist visits and weekly workshops during the school-sponsored club time. And in 2018, the Chaos Collective moved into the community and became Soda City Youth Slam. And this was at the behest of some of our other students who wanted something to do during the summer. They didn't like that they didn't have this community during the summertime. They wanted me to find them a place where they could continue to write and perform when school wasn't in session. So we started Soda City Youth Slam as a way to provide those students with a safe artistic space between the school years. And during the transition from 2018 to 2019, I left the classroom and sort of made this my full-time gig. In 2019, the last members of my founding cohort came of age and went to college or went to careers. In 2020, those students helped me write the grant work paperwork for us to gain nonprofit status. We are a 501c3 in South Carolina. And then in 2021, in kind of during pandemic times, our first virtual team went to Brave New Voices. It was an all virtual festival for the first time ever. And one of our students took home what's called the Spirit of the Slam Award, which is kind of the miscongeniality of BNV, which was extremely important to us as an organization because we have always focused more on the caliber of our students' character. We never pushed them to win slams. We never pushed them to write outside of their topics of interest. Anything we wanted them to do, we wanted them to do for their own growth and development. And we feel like Pranita taking that award was kind of the pinnacle of, we did it! They are amazing humans. So this was the Chaos Collective, this group of students that forced me to become their club advisor in 2016. And I had dinner with them over Christmas, and they're big grown-ups now. I'm going to cry a little bit. Oh, how big they are. And are either in their last year of or have graduated college. And they're all still in contact with each other, which I think tells you a little bit about how important this community was to them. So I want to talk a little bit about students and spoken word and why youth need these spaces both in and outside of school. And that's Katie, and she jumped up on my desk in order to do that poem, which I thought was just lovely. She didn't warn me at all. So as I've been going through this process with my many different students in our many different times, usually during their second year of doing spoken word with me, I ask my young people to send me a video of them answering these questions in whatever way they want to. So I've asked them if spoken word belongs in schools, if spoken word or poetry in general means something to them, and how it's changed them as people, because that's important to me. And it's important to the culture of spoken word. Identity is a huge part of what we do. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So this creates a context for these kids. So spoken word is something that has been said to speak the language of the marginalized, and it's because it is so entrenched in the context of hip hop and beats and in these kind of historically marginalized cultures that these students can come to this space even inside the very rigid environment of school and feel safe. So these student performances, as they're doing them both in my school space and outside of it, they're mediating their negative institutional biases. And I think that's why, historically marginalized students are so overrepresented in slam, because they can take a space that is so small for them and they can make it so big with their voice. So I want to talk to you about Karma. I love Karma. She is amazing. She's a radio disc jockey now, which is insane. And she's just this powerhouse social justice paladin. So when I asked my questions of Karma, and I'm not going to read this, I'm going to let her speak it herself. Spoken word belongs in schools because it's an outlet for students that don't usually or aren't usually able to speak their mind. School is a really controlled environment. You might think, well, you go to a public school, you have a lot of freedom, you have a lot of this and that. But I mean, you're still being regulated in what you say. You're not allowed to say certain things. I mean, yeah, cussing and profanity is like is morally unacceptable, but there's a point where I need to just be able to speak my mind about a topic in my life. And I don't want to be I don't want to be told that, oh, this doesn't really matter. You're just a teenager. Your issues aren't as big as this and that. Well, I have feelings, and I do have feelings about these issues in the world and these issues in my life. And spoken word is just another way to express it. And it's kind of fun for me because I'm not restricted by the rules of my writing classes and all the classes that I take that make me write essays and whatnot. I can write it however I want it. I can have a lot of internal rhyme. I can do what I want. It's not like strict. It's not a strict thing that that makes me conform. It's a breathtaking process that allows me to express myself. I love that. It's a breathtaking process. Ooh. She has such a way with words. So this is one of Karma's poems, and Karma really latched onto the tradition of hip hop within spoken word. And she actually based this poem on a poem that was based on the poem by Gil Scott Heron that was written by a local artist named Treble Rain who came and did one of our workshops. I'm sorry if my rooster is making noise in the background. Um, But so she took Tribal's feedback from the original poem and the original poem itself, and she wrote her own version that spoke to her concerns as a young Black woman living in today's global society. Society, the revolution will not be televised by his doctor. And I wrote a modern version that, you know, applicable to 21st century, my life, when people's lives around me. It's called The Revolution Will Not Be. You will not be able to watch stream. You will not be able to touch up your makeup when sweat makes it run. You will not be able to amp up your face just because you attended a parade of a dying race. Because the revolution will not be. The revolution will not be brought to you in 4 parts with your favorite YouTubers and with 30-second commercial breaks. The revolution will not show you pictures of the Jenners holding ice cold Pepsis and leaving the charge for fully clad Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, and Travis Scott in sugar bears confiscated from Instagram influencers. The revolution will not be. The revolution will not be brought to you by VH1 and will not star the Queen of the 16 and pregnant, Ryan Seacrest, SpongeBob, or Britney. The revolution will not grant you sex appeal. The revolution will not spike yourself with fat. The revolution will not make your waist thinner because the revolution will not be. There will not be body cam videos of undertrained officers shooting colored persons on the Discovery page. There will be no pictures of the young being around with voting booths and Uber with park and cash out transfers. There will be no slow motions or still lifes of Beyonce strolling through Times Square in a gold, black, and purple on and catsuit. She's saving just right occasion. Keeping up with the Kardashians or Walking Dead and Friends will no longer be so damn relevant, and the girls will not care if Archie and Betty finally get down on Riverdale because oppressed minorities will be on the streets looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be. There will be no highlights on the Daily Mail Snapchat story, no pictures of voluptuous women liberationists, and Alice Marie Johnson crying. The theme song will not be written by Drake Lil Wayne or rapped by Kanye West, Nicki Minaj, Post Malone, 6ix9ine, or the Amigos. The revolution will not be back after a quick survey about Pantene, Tresemme, white people hair. You will not have to. You will. You will not have to worry about the fuckboy in your bedroom or the tank in your fridge or the zero in the grade book. The revolution will not go better with Starbucks. The revolution will not fight the girl who stole your man. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be molded to fit your needs. It will not be industrialized. It will not be digitalized. The revolution will not be reposted in praise. The revolution will be live. So I thought that was just a really interesting thing that she did to entrench herself in the tradition of poetry, a poem that we might read in our school classes. So I want to talk a little bit about the impact that this has on these historically marginalized youth. And I love this phrase here, on the island of misfit toys. And EJ, one of my students, said this to me when she was telling me about after her first Care Alliance, which is our youth regional. She said, "I love it here. I'm on the island of misfit toys and I finally belong." And EJ is a young woman on the autism spectrum, and she connected with another young man on the autism spectrum while we were at the event, and they wrote together. And it was the first time she had ever had an opportunity to write with somebody else like her. So students participating in community spoken word groups identify usually in one way or another as outcasts, which allies them with this perception of spoken word poetry venues and spaces as places where those identities can be performed. So the identities that they genuinely have that they often have to hide in their school spaces. So participation in the community kind of comes along with the expectation of understanding the history of historically marginalized groups. And it comes with a certain level of temperance, I guess. So this is a space where you can't pick on someone for being weird because everyone is weird. So EJ joined me when she was a freshman. EJ is now on her path to becoming a professional writer. She writes for a blog at Winthrop. She's in her junior year. Here EJ's talking to me about why she enjoys the spoken word program, why she thinks it's important. And that's a picture of EJ at Care Alliance. And one thing I love about EJ is when she first started performing with us, she would pull a Jim Morrison where she would turn her back to the audience because she couldn't stand to look at them. And when we took her to Care Alliance, you can see she's got her hand up. She's gesturing. It was the most amazing performance I've ever seen from her. And it's because she was in a space where she felt accepted.
Spoken word poetry does belong in schools. It's given me an outlet for when I felt lost and angry and alone. If I did not have this outlet, I don't know what I would be interested in. The spoken word group has let me realize my feelings in a positive way, and on some accounts, I think it has kept me out of trouble. My participation in this group has impacted my growth as a person because I got to experience new opportunities as a literate young person. I keep finding new ways on how to write poems and new people who inspire me.
So I'm not gonna play this one in its entirety, but I love how she noodles at the beginning here. So when someone is noodling, they're just talking to the audience. And she had an immense fight with her parents right before they dropped her off. So she was so mad, and she just talked to the mic for probably a good 2 minutes before she even got to the poem. And everyone just had to be cool with that.
Thing, even though it's right across the street from where you are. The parents who always have to just say no when it's something stupid and ironic that they probably did when they were young. You read more dangerous stuff in books than you do that you actually do. But what's the point of being at this generation and saying you only live once, like YOLO and all that crap, when you don't get to experience anything and you just read about it? Why?
So what I love about this is that here she is getting out into the world, experiencing things, complaining about how her parents have limited her in that capacity. But I love EJ. She is hilarious and just such a deep human being. So student identities kind of go at the center of this. And I encourage you guys to go back and watch EJ's poem just because she's amazing. But I know I have a time limit. So here are my students. So through this program, I watched the students become themselves, this genuine version of themselves that they maybe weren't when I first met them. And nobody actually exemplified this better than a student named Mikey. So the reason that this works, guys, is that writing slam poems and performing them, they're co-constructive. They're co-constructive acts between an audience and a poet. The audience is sitting out here looking at this poet, getting a feeling for who they are, and they are justifying, they're reflecting back whatever this poet is saying, whatever person they're becoming. And so this is a really great process, especially for students who have been told that there's something not quite right with them, who have been maybe not been shown the best side of other people, not been shown the best side of institutionalized schooling. To have this group, this mirror, where they can be the person they want to be and have it reflected back at them. So that's Mikey there in the center. And I saw Mikey the other day, we had coffee. Mikey has a full beard and wears a torque and fell in love with Chaucer several years ago and is excavating like architectural sites or whatever. I'm not 100% about with like sure what he does for a living, but he loves it, so that's important. But these interactions have been shown to provide the kiddos with conscious and unconscious opportunities to shift their identities away from those negative stereotypes that they get at school and into a more positive space, a more positive framing of the person that they think they are. So you can see here in this picture, these are a bunch of kiddos from different slam groups that are playing a game on the lawn in between poetry slams at Carol Alliance in 2019. They'd never met each other before, and here they are running around on some grass, you know, playing together, even though they're all high schoolers. So Mikey started lurking when the group first came in, and Mikey was still living as a female at that time. Mikey joined when he began his transition in 2018. So here's my Mikey.
Being part of a spoken poetry group has honestly been the best decision I've made yet. It's not just about a bunch of emo kids just kind of, chilling and talking about their lives. There's much more to that. Because I know for me, speaking and using words has always been difficult to express what I've been feeling. But able to somehow harness all that mishmash and put it into something that's kind of beautiful that can help inspire others is truly amazing. And like everyone that I've been in my poetry group, we're still so close. We're like family, dude. Like most of them are off to college. I'm one of the few people that are still left from the original group. Still in high school, but like I still talk to them on a daily basis. I still contact them, and whenever they come home for holidays or summer, I always hang out with them. So the poetry group has basically become my second family.
So as you can tell, Mikey has a deep attachment to this group, and it's probably why we still have coffee. Mikey came from a very Catholic home where his dad struggled with his transition. And so I've watched Mikey kind of fall into, he patterned his masculinity on JB, who is our other main coach. He's our performance coach for the group. And he's a very kind of radically loving dude, very emotive. But I have all these pictures of Mikey where he's doing the same kind of body postures that I have pictures of JB doing. And when I looked at them closely, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's using this as a model because it's a healthier model than maybe the ones that he had. So he had access to loving adults in the poetry community who could give him a model for his new identity that was safe and accepting. Come on, little thing. There we go. So I'm going to play this one. This is Mikey reading Dear Dad.
Dear Dad, you've always been there for me, even when times were hard. From football to hockey to history too, you've taught me so many things to do. I always was your little girl. That's the thing I'm trying to render. Something so tough for you to remember. I know it's hard for you to understand that I was not born a girl but a man. For 14 years, I struggled and wondered, why am I different from the others? But then I realized the answer came in one small, simple factor. I just have to be me. I'm sorry I can't be the perfect daughter for the perfect father. But maybe soon you'll see that I am truly perfect being me. Sincerely, your son, Michael.
I love him so much. So here he is again. This is Mikey and Halima. And so I want to talk a little bit about mentorship in spoken word, because the wonderful thing about it is that it's not top down. It's not what you get in schools. It's very unilateral. The students teach me stuff. I teach them stuff. They go out into middle schools, the high school students do, and they teach the workshops. Mikey and Halima taught so many middle school workshops together, which I think is wonderful because they have such a unique friendship. So here, as you can see, I have this devout, wonderful, loud Muslim young woman and this young trans man who have developed this really amazing working relationship in order to teach middle schoolers how to write poetry. And they're great at it. So in the community, the spoken word community, it's been called by a lot of things. June Jordan in the Poetry for the People project called it a beloved community, patterning it on the civil rights movement. It's been called a participatory literacy community, an affinity space. Mikey called it a family. But these are students who have found a space in which they can build each other up. So I've got here a picture of them. A bunch of them went and performed poems at a rally, protest against school violence. They, even outside of the kinds of spaces that we provided, the workshops, the slams, they did things together, and they did things together that built themselves as poets. And when we were building SCYS as a 501c3, we built into our bylaws the Youth Advisory Council. Now, the Youth Advisory Council has complete creative control. I am called the artistic director in name only. I have to run everything by these kids, and they have to tell me it's cool. They run a lot of stuff by me. I'm just here to do the paperwork, y'all. That's kind of the end of it. But 3 members of this student group participate in every aspect of running the organization. We always have a student president. Jen was there a couple years ago. We received a concern about an upcoming workshopper who was going to come in and work with our group, and we had to have a meeting about that. And Halima, who was the president at the time, sat in on that meeting and had amazing feedback to give on how we were supposed to deal with this situation in our community. Students have to have been members for 2 years before they join the council, but after that, as long as they continue showing up for events, they're on it, and they can come to any council meeting and they can vote on any initiative that we want to put into place. So Halima was the most recent president of this organization. We do not have a president right now because we're kind of in intermission while I'm transferring my responsibilities over to somebody else. But she attended the University of South Carolina. She was a nursing major. She was a slam enthusiast. She performed at the state level. She was amazing. And she and Karma, who was the previous president, have done amazing work building up the Student Advisory Council, this Youth Advisory Council, into a real powerhouse behind this organization. So COVID hit, right? We were doing this amazing thing. We had 3 events a month, a performance workshop, a writing workshop, and sometimes we had more than 4. Oh my goodness. We'd have a performance workshop, we'd have a writing open mic, we would have a slam, and we would have a workshop conducted by an adult member of the writing community, all free to the kiddos. We did this every month. COVID happened. Everything shut down, and we had to figure out what we were gonna do next. So what we did was we moved online. And we wrote ourselves a grant, and we got ourselves a Zoom login, and we started doing all of our events online. And they actually worked pretty well. And what we ended up with was a much wider net of students not in South Carolina, students from all over the world. We had a kid from Britain who was participating pretty regularly for a while. We had students who, even before the pandemic, could not leave their homes. We had a very medically fragile kiddo who was paralyzed from the neck down, would do her poems through a computer program that kind of spoke for her. Kids we would have never seen in person were able to find us and were able to participate with us. And that's how we came to the 2021 team. So what's important about this, guys, is that this space was located in a third place. It wasn't a home. It wasn't a school. It was a true community space, completely digital. We had kids whose parents did not know they participated in this because their parents would not have approved. And I had to go with them like, are you 18? Yes, cool. I don't have to tell anybody anything. One of our students was a kiddo who was in a very kind of Orthodox Jewish family, and she did her slam one night in the stairwell of her apartment building because she couldn't let them hear what she was saying. So having this online where it was accessible really made this a powerful space for them. And the 4 students who ended up on our 2021 team had a lot of weirdly similar concerns in that area. So one of those students was Keela. And Keela joined in our regular 2020 and 2021 slams, was a junior at the time, non-binary young person. So optimistic. Like, I don't know how I would have gotten through the stress that was the first virtual B&B if Keela hadn't been sitting there like, we can do it. So Keela sent me some of the information with the state of Utah in the background here. It's kind of long. I'm not going to play the whole of it, but.
So, my name is Keela, and I am one of many people that have participated in Soda City Youth Slam over the years. I stumbled across Soda City Youth Slam in the midst of the pandemic. I was around 16, and honestly, I am so grateful that I did not let my insecurities get the best of me, because I have found such a wonderful community of people to grow with, and I cannot thank them enough. I am here today to answer a few questions about poetry, and so I'm going to do that. The question is, does poetry belong in? And I would say, absolutely it does. To quote my friend Liberty, who is the vice president of our local high school's slam poetry team, he said, "Slam is a place where every emotion and feeling is out there and able to be heard. And people have responded wonderfully to it, educating themselves on how to handle emotional situations and different emotions in general." And I couldn't agree more. It's definitely a great way to learn how to fight. Even in these small communities, that is my own school, whenever we bring up poetry or share our own poetry, it's always a very powerful and valid because listening to other kids about their frustrations and feelings and just laying all of it out there is just, it's beautiful how vulnerable we can be with each other without knowing each other very well. And when our teacher shares spoken word or slam poetry or any form of poetry in class, it always makes us think. And a lot of the students just feeling, and I think
I'm going to stop there with Keela, but you can really see Keela's passion in spoken word, and I'm so glad that she found us and was able to explore it and come to be the amazing writer that they are. Oh, no, why did you do that? A memento. So one of the things that all 4 of the students on the 2021 team discussed frequently, kind of as we were preparing for Brave New Voices, was several of the young people in there were concerned that they might end up in marriages that they don't want. And it was something that they talked about a lot. They're like, what is this? It's 2021 in the United States of America. Why are we even still talking about this? And so at the slam, they had an opportunity to perform a team piece. And this is not a great recording, but I think it's extremely powerful that in 2021, 4 young women from different areas of the country who had never met each other in person came together with these same concerns and had a place where they were validated.
Shut your damn mouth. They tell us.
You know you have no voice when.
Anna, we aren't able to hear it.
Ah, I gotcha.
Let's see what the piece. It's a milestone before. And see what's in time.
So I'll leave that one.
You're
I'll leave that one for you guys to kind of peruse. It is, as I mentioned, not my best recording. But I did find it to be kind of a powerful representation of who they were as a team. And so now as we're going back out sort of into the world, we are creating a hybridized digital space for our students, is our hope as we return. We got some donations to purchase some AV equipment. We found a venue that was willing to let us set it up so that our online students can still participate while our local students are able to come in and participate in person. So I'll let you guys know how the hybridized space works when we're getting it up and running, but I'm very excited about this opportunity to widen our net and to create more opportunities for our young people to continue to be a part of our spoken word community. So summing it up, why do I think spoken word is super important, and why do I think young people need to have an entrenched spoken word space? Because they need the community, because it integrates their literacy skills in and out of the classroom, because it emphasizes all of their mixed abilities. So not all of these kids are honors kids. Most of them are not honors kids. Most of them are kids who are in the principal's office a lot. But they get to come together and create art and use their voice, use their reading, writing, speaking skills for something amazing. It gives them freedom of choice in who they want to listen to, who they want to learn from, and who they want to become. And I think that that's so much more valuable than really anything else that I can teach them. So I wanted to encourage you guys to do a quick 5-minute prompt before we end today. Just because we've spent all this time listening to great poetry. So it never hurt to write great poetry. So we would do these a lot. We called them 5-minute prompts. And we would just have the kids write totally silently for 5 minutes and then read their half-baked poems if they felt like it. So I want y'all to choose one of these. What would you want to say as a teacher, a mother, a friend, etc., to the universe if you knew that they were listening? Recall a memory from your school years. What did you learn from that experience that wasn't in the curriculum? Or how do you perceive yourself? How do you believe others perceive you? And what would these different versions of yourself talk about if they met? I'll set my timer. There's my timer, y'all. I hope that you got something out of that exercise. So I wanted to put this information up here for you all. That's JB, who is my co-coach. And here's all of our various internet collection stuff, as well as some links to some of our sister teams for folks who might be in different areas of South Carolina. Or the Carolinas in general. I think, no, we're the only team in South Carolina. There was Holy City, but they shuttered. So yeah, we're it. So I just rambled at you guys for 50 minutes. What questions do you have for me?
I saw that you took care of Elke's questions. So Elke, did you see her responses there?
I did. Thank you. Thank
No.
you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
I think what I'd like to know more your thoughts on, especially since this is recorded and it's going to go out, to lots of teachers. How do you see this working in a middle school or a high school? Is this an elective? Is this something that you envision would be in an English language arts class, knowing what's going on in South Carolina with legislature? So can you talk to that a little bit?
So when I was doing this in school, we were a school club. The school had time during the school day for the club to meet. It wasn't every day, obviously. It was like once a week. Honestly, I feel like you have to make your classroom an area of resistance, which I think a lot of people are opposed to. These kids came and sat with me at lunch almost every day. They would come during our assigned club time. I organized so many in-school workshops with published poets in order to sneak it into the curriculum and let kids from other classes come join in. So it's something where you have to kind of get a little bit of malicious compliance about it. You have to play inside the rules in order to bring it in. But you can turn it into a space in that way. So I think a school club is a great way to go. I think that what we've done since I left the classroom is to sort of allow ourselves to be the bad guys. So teachers can partner with me and I'll bring a poet to your school and I'll help you set it up. And I think that that's one of the important things that we do. I'll bring a bunch of my high schoolers to your middle school and teach your kids to write. So I feel like partnerships between community organizations and schools are a great way to go as well, if you can't sneak that school club in there.
And so as a follow-up, because we have Wanda here, and Wanda is an instructional specialist at a high school that kind of taps into some of that leadership role and responsibility. What are your thoughts with what Anna's saying of how this would connect? Like, do you have questions? I really want to make sure this is supportive for everybody that would be watching this. And so Wanda has a unique perspective that I'd like to tap into in the conversation.
Yes. I was sitting here thinking, I wrote down Wits End because that is where I am in Greenville. I immediately thought of during our advisory time when we have our dedicated 40 minutes of space for kids to do different things, whether it's go to a club, have a group session. And I'm really thinking about reaching out to Wits End to see if they would be willing to come before school gets out to just pull a group of kids. I think this is a great way, especially in a school like the one I work in, for kids to express themselves in a different way that would be different from what their teacher would ask of them. And so I think I'm going to call Wits End tomorrow. So
And
thank
if
you
you
for,
want a little bit of help getting in touch with him, Josephus, who runs Wits End, he's phenomenal. And he also does workshops for teachers in the summer.
oh, that's perfect. So definitely fits the
So that's the one
curriculum.
thing about our spoken word communities. We're close knit. We all know each other.
Mhm.
So if you want us in your schools and we're not available, we know somebody who is.
And I just want to point out when she says they know each other, they really know each other. I met a gentleman from Indiana at LRA a couple of years ago, and he and somebody from Clemson and I put together these study groups. And I called on Anna and said, hey, would you like to present for us? I'm working with these other people, and I mentioned his name, and she's like, oh, Penzi, I know him, and it's from Indiana. So yeah, they know each other. They really know each other across the country.
But I also think that we really need to push this in our classrooms. I mean, they're teaching poetry, and if they're looking at this from a culturally sustaining perspective in their classrooms, poetry as they're learning it and writing it should be about them. I mean, this is something that I work on with even the trauma sensitive approach. And so I think that's one of the messages I really want to get from this conversation is in an ELA classroom, they are teaching poetry. It's a requirement. And so why can't this connect where it's about what students want to write about and what they want to share? I guess,
The-
like, what are your thoughts?
You bring up an interesting point there. I work at a college and I train teachers. So I get this backlash, like whacker backlash. Don't make us do poetry. You know, we're done with it. This is, and what's coming out is the form-based poetry where you have to go, I've got to do this type or this type or this type. In elementary, they say it was fun to write because they got to, and it was not so so structured, I guess. So I think one way we need to break through is at the middle and high school level. Why can't you write a poem about a science concept that you just learned, you know, and do it, Charlene, three verse, and take that pressure away of I have to do a particular form, and then go into do what they want to write about or what they want to express themselves. I mean, can you not find 5 minutes like what you just did with us, Anne, and really make it a free space to do some, call it associative writing, and see where that takes you to open up to whatever is going on. And I think it doesn't just belong in ELA, it belongs in other content areas too. But that's opening up colleagues' minds that are not into literacy, that are like, you know, standards topics minded people. Yeah, I think we have a lot of work to do there.
I'm putting the title of a poem into the chat. So this is a poem. Well, I used to do a lot of cross-disciplinary stuff with my colleagues when I was a classroom teacher. I do virtual now. But this one was always fun in science classes. It's called The Last Love Song of an Entomologist. And it has all these references to like the mating habits of bugs, but what it is a love poem by this dude to his wife. And I feel like those connections are amazing. And a lot of our colleagues are scared, and it is scary. Feelings are squishy and kids have a lot of them. And I think that's something that really holds people back. Like, oh my God, what if they say something terrifying? And they're going to say something terrifying because that's what comes out. And you just kind of have to be prepared to connect them with whatever resources they may need in that moment. Be it, you know, would you like a hug, or do I need to, you know, set something up with the school psych?
I think that's the important message. I mean, I love slam poetry, but too often you hear it's this separate thing. It's a club, it's after school. And I think that we really want to build that message that this can occur during the school day. It's incorporating student voice. I mean, there's a ton of research that keeps growing on hip hop, pedagogy with ELA. And that's not the same thing, but it's the same idea of, well, this belongs outside of the day versus these things are absolutely crucial for our students to engage in. And all of the examples and all the reasons why, like, it leads me even more of, this is why we need to incorporate this during the school day.
And so what I kind of want to leave you guys with, because I feel like this connects, SEYS, this giant sprawling thing, wouldn't exist if a 15-year-old girl who was going deaf hadn't aggravated the fire out of me because she wanted to make space for her voice in her school. They're so hungry for this. And I think that we just need to listen to them and honor whatever it is that they have to say.
Anna, thank you so much for your presentation. We really appreciate your coming and sharing all of this with us. We're going to go ahead and wrap up at this point in order to, because we're right at right at the ending time. So I just would like to share in our. Oops. I muted
You
myself. I was going to say, I just want to share in our chat again our link to our website at Literacy in the Discipline 612, so that if you need to come back to Anna's presentation, you're certainly welcome to do so, as well as any of the poetry discussions that we have had in our blog section for the month. Rochelle, did you have the the feedback form for us to drop in? So Rochelle's going to be dropping in just a second, because I saw from her face she's still working on it. She's going to drop in a feedback form, and we would appreciate it if everybody could just take a second in order to complete that. And with that, we're just going to say thank you very much, Anna. We appreciated you having here. You're brilliant as always. I'd love to have you hear you talk, and I can do it all day. So thank you so much, everyone.
having me.
Thank you.
And thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for attending. We really appreciate your coming.
Thank you. It was great.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Y'all too.